Burton and Jerry Hamilton. So hopefully we are all good to go here. This is Coffee and Football. I'm your host Blake Monroe, where I'm joined each and every day by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but I think we got them worked out. This will be a temporary way to do things. But in the meantime, guys, what we've been trying to talk about all morning long is the line. And Clemson, of course, opens as a opened as a 10.5 point favorite. That line is now at 11.5. The over under also has moved down 2 points to 51.5. But curious to get y'all's thoughts on that.
I'm having a hard time believing this right now, to be honest. Texas was 10.5. I'm trying to understand what happened. I mean, where did this sudden point change happen in a single day? It's not like anybody entered the portal for Clemson all of a sudden, but Texas guys, I think that the Texas defense is starting to get the respect it deserves.
Great.
And I just think that's part of it. By the way, Blake and Jerry, we had some technical difficulties this morning based on our software provider, StreamYard. A lot of people are having those issues across the country with StreamYard where nobody could hear us. I would add this real quick for everyone. Thank you to our producer, Matthew Hutchison, for getting us up on a different streaming software so quickly this morning. We apologize for any inconvenience. I hope this is a good coffee and football for everyone. Even though we are waiting a little bit, we are starting a little bit late today. Albert Martinez asking, am I tripping or did we just start? We did just start. We had some issues there. Jerry, what do you think about this spread moving further towards the Longhorns?
Well, I was going to say today's show is second cup of coffee in football. So for those that have to get through one and they're on the maybe the decaf. Look, I agree, Bobby. I think the Texas defense is always continuing to get respect. I also think when you start diving in to this matchup, I mean, there is a reason Texas is favored this much. That doesn't mean it's going to be an easy football game. Clemson's number 2 running back got hurt in the against SMU in the ACC championship game. Obviously, we weren't getting any more injury reports, so that'll be interesting to see as well. But I think Clemson's a quality football team. But I think the more people, dig into Clemson defensively, we talked about this yesterday in the 5 games against teams that were 7-5 or better. That was Pitt, Louisville, South Carolina, Georgia, and SMU. They're giving up 430 yards a game. So I think when you look at what the total defensive numbers are, is one thing. But then when you dig into, okay, who were the best teams they played? What were those numbers like? They also struggled running the ball in the majority of those games. Louisville, Phil Maffa got on track. He's also got a hurt shoulder. He's not going to be 100%. He's been dealing with that the last few weeks for Clemson. But once you dig in a little bit more on Clemson, they've kind of struggled running the football. Pittsburgh, Maffa had 17 for 17 against SMU, 13 for 28. So Clemson struggled running the football, and if Texas can take away the run, could Clemson beat Texas being a one-dimensional team? That's going to be the question. They haven't scored a lot of points on offense. I mean, the loss to Louisville is 33-21. Pitt was a 24-20 game. Obviously, Georgia first game this season, so you have to take that with a grain of salt on some level because Clemson's improved as an offensive team. The more Bryant Wesco has got involved. Antonio Williams, really good receiver. Cade Klubnik's gotten better as the season has moved along. But they've struggled scoring points in some of those games as well. I mean, SMU, they put up points, but some of that was SMU a little self-inflicted. So South Carolina, 14 points at home against South Carolina. They managed to move the ball, just couldn't score the ball. So the 2 SEC teams Clemson's played against this year, they've averaged 8.5 points a game. And so I do think the Texas defense is going to be part of this line movement as it leads up to this game.
I agree with all of what Jerry's saying. I think that obviously the chat is saying, hey, well, the line only moves because there's more Texas bets. I know that. I'm just saying what caused those Texas bets to go in. Look, here we are, and I think it's time. We talked a little Clemson and Texas. I think we also need to take the time to talk a little portal.
Yeah.
Because that is what's moving right now in college football. I think over 500 names went in on the very first day, Jerry. Maybe more than that now as well. So that's something to watch for. On the Texas side of things, there were 3 additions to the portal yesterday that we didn't really talk about. Some of them happened as we were on yesterday morning on Coffee and Football. But we already knew Jonte Cook and Jeray Bledsoe, the wide receiver and defensive tackle, would be there. Darian Gillette, the linebacker out of Marlin, Tassilia Kana out of Utah, the linebacker edge, and Aaron Bryant, a third-year defensive tackle who kind of got bypassed a little bit, are there as well, guys. So what's happening now is those are 5 that are in. We still think there is another group set to come. Now, they may wait until after the Clemson game. They may do it later today. I mean, there's going to be a few that still come in for Texas, and we are waiting for a couple that could make a little noise. By comparison, I think A&M already has 14 or 15 guys in the portal. OU, as of last count, already had 10 in the portal. You will see teams that are not in the playoffs have more portal entries right now. It looks like, Jerry, you mentioned this, Virginia Tech may not have a team come tomorrow.
Yeah, some more
going into the portal hot and heavy. Some key entrants that we're tracking at this point. Jerry and I went over this prior to this. There are a number of different players. Eric Singleton, a wide receiver out of Georgia Tech, looking at Ole Miss, Georgia, and Auburn right now. Don't count out Texas long-term if the Longhorns get in there. Dane Key, wide receiver out of Kentucky. He was their number 1 receiver this year. That's a possibility for him. Also, Nick Anderson out of Oklahoma. He went in the portal. A&M is thought to be the leader. Jerry, you had we talked about KC Concepcion, wide receiver out of NC State. Another young man out of Mississippi State went into the portal today as well, Jerry.
Yeah, Mario Craver, the receiver from Mississippi State, is interesting. Singleton, a lot of people think he's going to end up at Georgia, so we'll see. But Mario Craver was a freshman that got behind people this year. He's fast, 10'6" kid. I believe he's out of Pinson, Alabama, from Mississippi State. Had 17 for 368 and 3 touchdowns. Got behind Texas, got behind Florida, got behind Georgia. He's shown the ability to get behind SEC teams as a freshman receiver. And we're not saying Texas is going to go after these guys necessarily, but names that people that Texas will look at. You know, I think that's the thing. Names that people look at. A defensive lineman, Anthony Holmes out of Westfield High School at University of Houston, went in this morning. He's a guy that's going to get a lot of looks, and I'm not saying he's going to end up in the SEC, but I can guarantee you this: all the Big 12 teams are going to make it run at him because he was a really good player at Houston. The question is, Texas is looking for certain sized individuals on the defensive front going into the SEC, Bobby, at transferring. So that makes the pool shrink and a little bit smaller at defensive line potentially, because Anthony Holmes is a quality football player. He may just be a quality football player in the ACC or Big 12 versus the SEC. We'll have to see where the teams go after him.
I think it's completely legitimate too, because you look at Anthony Bryant as a proxy. Yeah. And here's a guy that's not a bad athlete, not a bad player. His size isn't ideal for the SEC. He could go to the Big 12 and play immediately, in my opinion. So is Anthony Williams and those kind of 285, 295-pound guys, unless there's somehow, and I'll say this try to say this the right way, unless there's somehow Aaron Donald, right, and these super freak athletes. And I don't think any of those guys are that. I will mention 2 kids from Manor, Texas, are in the portal. We will see exactly what that means. But Quentin Joyner, the USC tailback, is in the portal, as is Prince Will Umamalian, young man that played at Nebraska. He's an edge. Jerry, you and I hadn't thought Texas might go after an edge, but Texas has some history with bringing back local products like Andrew Makuba in this past go-round as well. There have been precious few defensive tackles go in at this point. Keyshaw Silver out of Kentucky, it's a 330-pound guy. He apparently has narrowed his choices already to Florida, Miami, Michigan, and USC. We're still expecting Cole Brevard out of Purdue to go in, but he had not actually gone in as of this morning. Ahmad Hardy, the young man that played so well against Texas, running back out of ULM, also in the portal.
He's good
as well. A number of different guys we're waiting on. One that I think is you can circle at this point, Jerry, is Jack Baumeister, the punter out of Utah. He'll have 2 years eligibility remaining. Texas is going to need a punter in the portal almost assuredly. He averaged 44.7 yards per punt this year, had 60 punts overall, 23 out of the 60 inside the 20. Good punter, Australian native, but has 2 years left availability right now.
Yeah, there's a huge name. I'm not saying this for Texas purposes. Williams Nwaneri, the freshman, the edge at Missouri, the number 1 ranked player in the country by some in the 24 classes going in the portal. Didn't have the impact freshman year that Colin Simmons had by any means. I think he had one sackle. One sackle. One sack. I just brought up a great new term.
That is a new term, a sackle.
Did you get a sackle this Saturday? But boy, that was good. I got to write that down. I'm going to use that again. But Williams Nwaneri had 1 sack last year, so didn't put up the big numbers. I think there was thought. I mean, he didn't play sparingly, 2 tackles and 1 sackle. But he's in the portal. Daniels from Oklahoma State's going to be Kendall Daniels, Bobby, will be a highly coveted guy in the portal. 6'4", 230-ish, a hybrid safety linebacker that has range, really good football player. Somebody's already using that term. That's a good one, right? Sometimes you fall into funny ones. But Kendall Daniels will be an interesting guy in the portal as well, because I think he's going to be coveted by a lot of teams. A guy that was committed to A&M, maybe signed with A&M, got out of that letter, decided to stay home and go to Oak State, and has had 240 tackles in his career at Oak State. Is now in the portal as well. So he's going to be an interesting player. Does he fit with an SEC team scheme wise?
Yeah, fair enough. Hey, guys, we need to say thank you to one of our key sponsors. If you don't mind, we'd like to welcome and talk about Tecovas. Texans know that anywhere worth going is worth going in good boots. Tecovas are handcrafted with every stitch on point. Tecovas boots are made for a good time and a long time. I was wearing these down in Atlanta this past weekend. I love the fact that they're already broken in for comfort right out of the box, so you're ready to go right when you get them. And Tecovas makes it easy for anyone to find their favorite boot with all kinds of sizes and styles. Tecovas are simply the best boot around. I really like that they can either be daily boots or you can feel dressed up with them. Right now, get 10% off at tecovas.com/Texas football when you sign up for their email and text. That's 10% off at tecovas.com/Texas football with Tecovas Best in the West guarantee. You also get free returns and exchanges for 30 days. That works through the holidays, by the way. If you're thinking about a Christmas gift, tecovas.com/Texas football. See site for details. Tecovas, point your toes west.
Hey, and I know Matthew put this in the chat, but I do want to reiterate this point. Manscaped your cycle. If you put in a super chat earlier, we cannot see them now. So please put it in the chat. Let us know that it was a super chat, and we will get to those here shortly. And speaking of, here's the one right now. Excluding incoming freshmen, we only have 3 scholarship linebackers next year. Have guys like Akana already been told they won't play? Seems like it would be better to wait until after spring exit interviews.
Akana actually is working at defensive end. Gillette is the one that decided to enter the portal. Look, I think that Texas feels good about the 3 that are returning, like very, very good, with LaFau as well as Anthony Hill. They like the ones they brought in with Jonathan Cunningham and Elijah Bo Barnes. I still think that they're likely to take one linebacker. We mentioned yesterday Jacob Manu out of Arizona, who had a season-ending injury. He was a former captain at Arizona and played for Johnny Nansen. Nansen may be willing to wait on his injury to heal to take somebody that he already knows his scheme. I would add this. We mentioned Kendall Daniels at Oklahoma State just a minute ago. I'm going to put another name out there for you guys to watch, and that's Kelly Lawson, Keli Lawson at Virginia Tech. Highly productive guy that could fit in a Texas scheme.
And Matthew, I'm going to let you throw another one up here. We're having to do the show a little bit differently today, so bear with us. But Dante says, and Dante, thank you for the super chat. Jerry, is former 5-star Kentucky defensive lineman Keyshawn Silver a player Texas might go after in the portal? And then what about Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy from A&M?
Yeah, Brownlow-Dindy, heck of a prospect coming out of high school, but he had the knee injury. I think it slowed him. He really hasn't become the player that a lot of people thought he would. And I really liked his upside coming out of high school. I think that one surprised. At Texas, I believe, Bobby, they need guys with experience that have done it before at a high level is what Texas is looking for. They need dudes, as we call them. I mean, they're losing dudes. They have to replace dudes with dudes. I'm not sure. And I'm not saying you can't have one guy that you think has kind of been through the coaching process, the recruitment phase his freshman year, and bring a guy in that you feel like, okay, this guy could be a good rotational player for us. But by and large, Texas is going to go after guys that have put it on the board that have fit the size that they're looking for in this scheme in the SEC.
I would say this, especially at certain positions like wide receiver.
Yeah.
They're not looking for a guy that hasn't shown he can play. They're just not. And so at the same time, do I think they need depth pieces at defensive tackle to go along with some frontline guys? I think we all agree with that. So I think it's position dependent.
Yeah.
Gabe Brownlow-Dindy, I would very much doubt Texas would have interest there. He ended up not playing. I mean, he's very similar in some ways, even to Aaron Bryant. Not necessarily a guy that is ideal for Texas at this point. So I wouldn't think that would be a guy Texas goes after. We'll see. You never say never, but doubtful in my opinion.
And then our next super chat comes from Sugar Poppy, formerly Sugar Daddy. He said, this is a trust me super chat. He says, sending so Bobby will eat the mayo corn dog. Show me the receipt on that one.
Yeah. Show me yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Then Rich Thompson with the super chat. Thank you, Rich. He says, I'm laughing at how much I was freaking out when I couldn't hear you guys. Hook 'em. Hey, we were freaking out too, Rich.
Hey, Jerry was over there trying to talk and tell us all about the spread and why things were going. And, you know.
Hey, Joe Z, we did not get your $1,000 super chat, but I'll give you my bank account number in a DM on TexasFootball.com after the show. Sorry your super chat didn't go through, but I wanted to.
Then we got another one here from Dante. Thank you again, Dante. And he says, Bobby, how do you rank Makuba among Texas top safeties? I'm going to miss this guy. He's been a huge addition to the defense.
Man, I agree. I think that he has been he's been a rock, you know, I thought going into the season, it would be Michael Taft that would be that person. And I'm not saying Michael Taft hasn't been to a large degree, right? Because he's got the experience, but Makuba has flashed some real skills as a hitter of late. I mean, it was not like, just a reminder, it was not just the last hit he made on Gunnar Stockton in that game. He came up and flashed some leather against Trevor Etienne, keeping him out of the end zone. That Texas it was a backside hit, and he just knocked the you-know-what out of him on the goal line. Georgia did not get in after that play. And so he held up one-on-one there. I love him. I think that he has been one of the keys to this success of this Texas team. No doubt about it, Jerry.
Daniel Earp said Makuba had his best game against Georgia. I totally agree.
11 tackles.
That's a draft stock game for him, because I think NFL scouts want to see physicality and increased physicality from him against the run this year, or just in general, because he's always been a good playmaker, very heady player. He's answered that call. That game will be good for his draft stock. I think that may have been his best game at Texas. And by the way, I'm guessing he wants to have his best career game on December 21st at 3 p.m. Not that he has ill will against Clemson. It's not about that, but there's motivation.
Oh, without a doubt.
Like if Joe Z and I played one-on-one in hoops, I'd want to have the best shooting day I've ever had. My guy.
May have to arrange that. Stream it live on Texas Football. All right, Burt Reynolds, thank you for your super chat. Says, what's the early RPM on Singleton?
A lot of people think it'll be Georgia. I'm not saying I do. I don't have that, but a lot of people think that Georgia will be the pick there. But we shall see what he does. He's a state of Georgia kid, so we'll see.
And then our next question comes from T-Pods, and he says, what about a portal kicker?
We talked about this, and I don't know of one yet that's in there that Texas would necessarily go after. A month ago, Jerry, we would have said, no way does Texas take a kicker. But Bert Auburn has put his job in jeopardy. And I don't say that meanly or anything. It's just reality, right? And so I think as I look at this team right now, I think they've got to look at one if they think they can get a great one. Because Bert Auburn, while good, I don't think he's an NFL kicker. Right, Jerry? He doesn't have that type of leg, even if he regained his accuracy. And so are there great kickers out there? I mean, Alabama took a kicker from Miami of Ohio last year. There are guys out there that can be possibilities. We don't know yet who all's in the going to be in the portal. Maybe Texas goes in there. I do think we're waiting to see what's happening with this punter out of Utah, and we'll go from there. But as a kicker, Texas got an interesting dilemma on their hands.
Next question comes from Naaman Roberts. Thank you for the super chat. He says, Jerry, please explain how we zone block with huge humans, smaller, faster linemen zone block, Denver Broncos in the 90s, for example.
Bob, you got a thought on that as well? I mean, it's an interesting question. I think it sets up everything Sark does is the thing. And you want to Texas wants to stretch the perimeter and then stretch vertical with the passing game and the run game. I do think in the red zone though it gets a little tougher, Bobby. From his own
you can't really
perspective.
Yeah,
the field's too condensed. So that would be my thing. Is I totally get why Sark. And look, Sark knows a lot more about offensive ball and putting his scheme together than we do, right? I get why that's part of what Sark does. If you watch what his goals are offensively and see what his goals are offensively and the way he elects to attack teams and opponents in the red zone, I think it makes it a little tougher, though.
I will add this. Why do they do it with big humans? Because they're not just big; they're also athletic. I mean, DJ Campbell, that's one of the things about Texas right now. He's not just looking for big humans. He's looking for big athletic humans. I mean, and so the reason the Broncos were doing it, there weren't that many that were that big back then and athletic. Texas, whether it's Cam Williams, DJ Campbell, both those guys played high school basketball. Okay. They're big and athletic. Hayden Connor, fairly athletic for a big guy. Jake Majors, very athletic for a big guy, especially at center. Kelvin Banks has always held his own. His replacement, Trevor Gooseby, highly athletic for a big guy. I think that's bigger issue, just a change, Naaman Roberts, and actually individual development. I agree. Dan Neal used to be the guy for the Dan Neal, Studdard, used to be the guys for the Broncos back in the 90s. And they were smaller guys because they were quick to the edge. It's a little bit different now. You have to maintain that size while also being quick to the edge for those guys. And Sark and Flood have done a nice job picking up athletes at that position, in my opinion.
And our next question, guys, is going to come from, it's 420 somewhere. And he says, I rewatched the game and one play amazed me. On ETN's long run, he should have scored a touchdown running past everyone. But Simmons chased him down from the opposite end of the field. What a freak.
Totally. Total freak. I watch him this year and think about what's this guy going to look like in year 2. Oftentimes, I'm not trying to look ahead, but my thought process, Bobby and Blake, goes, what's this guy going to look like in year 2 of college football? I mean, he may have 14 sacks next year.
What was impressive about that, too, is Anthony Hill was running kind of in phase with ETN and could not get him. And Simmons had a little bit fresher run at him from a different angle and was able to track him down. I completely agree with this. I rewound that play twice in real time. I think that Simmons, by the way, is coming off the backside, Jerry. He literally was just a backside guy and made that tackle downfield. He showed some what do you want to say it? Adult in him on that play. Like he could have been one of those guys that was kind of lazily getting and providing run support, but he stayed with it. So I'm with Jerry. Look, he has 8 sacks on the year already. Colin Simmons does. He is going to be a force for Texas for the next 2 years. There's just no doubt in my mind. How good he will be, let's see. But he's got some real skills. I mean, there's just no 2 ways about it, and is a freaky athlete.
All right, guys. Then the next one here is going to come from Slick Rick. Thank you for your super chat, Slick Rick. As always, he says Cam Williams is the most penalized player in college football or in FBS. Your thoughts? And blitz Quinn, make him throw deep to beat Texas. Quinn panics under pressure. So let's start with the first one with Cam Williams.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's had too many penalties this year. I mean, there's no way around it. What, Bobby, on your third watch, was Cam Williams' hold legitimate in the Georgia game?
Yeah. Not over. I will say this: the thing about the SEC, and this is what while we talk about holds in the SEC, they are particular about the tackles, not about the guards and center. That's my takeaway. And they're very particular when you escape right or left as a quarterback. Everybody is on watch as soon as they do that. I mean, they are hyper aware. Like I was watching the end of the SMU Clemson game on Saturday. SMU's in the play before the touchdown, SMU's quarterback escaped left, and literally the SMU left tackle hogtied the Clemson's defensive end. In the SEC, that would have been immediate penalty, 10-yard loss. Instead, SMU completes a 7-yard pass, gets a first down inside the 5. The SEC is really particular about tackle play and quarterback evasion. Okay. What they are not particular about, in my opinion, is guard, center, guard. They will let that go. And so Cam Williams is in a microscope for multiple reasons, one of which is Quinn more often, by the way, escapes right.
Yes.
And so granted, I think Cam Williams needs to do a better job, but it's the false starts have calmed down, by the way. From him over time. It's now more about the holds that we're concerned with.
And I know the chat, there's about 3 or 4 things with this team that are always in the chat. And then one of the big ones is Cam needs to stay for another year. I don't know what to tell people. Like a second round pick, an early second round pick gets $8 to $10 million. It's just not happening.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not happening. And he can not, that's just way too much money. You can go develop a little bit in the league, play guard for a couple of years, then kick out. In my opinion. There's too much money on the table.
All right, guys. Let's see here. Before we get to another question, Matthew, sorry I didn't give you a heads up on this. Jerry, I'm going to let you tell everyone out there about Manscaped.
Well, you know what? Get your sackle ready because it's the Beard and Balls bundle. All right, fellas. The holiday season is here. And trust me, you don't want to be the guy showing up with tangled tinsel in your ornaments. Nope, that's never good in December. Luckily, our friends at Manscaped have got you covered from head to, down the chimney with the Beard and Balls bundle featuring the Lawnmower 5.0. Blake can't do the music. And the Beard Ultra. This bundle will make sure you're a gift worth unwrapping. Get ready for those mistletoe moments and get 20% off plus free shipping with code ONTEXAS at manscaped.com. There's a lot more I could read, and I'm about to, but I'll leave you with one other message. Join the 11 million men worldwide plus who trust Manscaped to stay sharp this holiday season. Get the Beard and Balls bundle today and slay your grooming routine. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code ONTEXAS at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code ONTEXAS at manscaped.com. Because Santa isn't the only one who needs his sack well-groomed this year. And if for no other reason, don't get tackled by your sackle. Manscaped.
The tangled pencil in your ornament. Is that what they came up with?
That's a good one.
That's good stuff. That's good
Their
stuff.
copywriters are pretty good.
It's pretty good.
After you get done doing all the things Jerry just said, you might be a little hungry. So let me tell you about Factor. And notice how the days are shorter, but your to-do lists aren't. You can power through your busy days with Factors. No prep, no mess meals from breakfast to dinner and anything and everything in between. Factor has easy, nutritious options to keep you fueled and feeling your best. Don't let shorter days slow you down. Stay energized with America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service. And Factor lets you do you. You can choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize.
Oh, Blake got lost there on the stream. He was talking about Factor. Use code ONTEXAS.
I'm back.
Is that right? You're back, Blake? What happened?
Guest internet at Cooks. You have to blame them, not me. But you can choose from 6 menu preferences. They got you guys hooked up. Factor meals are chef prepared, dietitian approved. You're
Gonna love them.
Yeah. Factor.
Hey, how about this? Did you know that Diabell, Jerry, was the Florida Gatorade Player of the Year?
Yes. Yeah, and we still haven't heard from
as a junior, by the way.
Right. No, big time. He had a really good season. They played American Heritage has played about as tough a high school schedule as you can outside of an IMG, I mean, they played Milton out of Atlanta to start the season, who was littered with Power 4 players. They played a really tough schedule in Florida. And, Diabell was having a tremendous junior season before he went down with injury. And I was going to say, we haven't heard yet from the Bell family or American Heritage. It would come from the Bell family on Diabell's injury officially. So I know people ask in the chat, but Diabell, well deserving of that award. Was having a really good season prior to that injury, and you just hope everything's okay with him.
For those interested, factormeals.com/Texas50. You're going to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. I know that was the longest, most delayed commercial ever, but there you go. I love Factor. You'll love Factor. I am a for real customer. I seriously love it, and you will too. So that is my pitch to you guys. All right, let's get back to some more questions before the internet craps out on me again here. Britt Rasco, thank you for the super chat. Do teams study film on refs to pick up tendencies?
That's a great question, Britt.
Not really. And it was announced yesterday that it'll be Big Ten officials for this game for Texas versus Clemson. Big Ten officials tend to call pass interference tighter and not holding tighter. Just going to put that out there. So be aware of that, Texas. That's the book on Big Ten officials.
Hey, we haven't touched on this yet, but I think that the reports are out there. Carson Beck's done.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
As well as the punter.
Punter. So Georgia's their path just got a lot tougher with Beck.
Sure. Notre Dame's just got a lot easier.
Yeah.
Notre Dame and Indiana, that game may be a play-in game at some level, in my opinion.
Living rent-free, Diabell reminds me of CJ Stroud. That's not a bad one.
Does he have that kind of arm strength?
I think he does. I think he's on that track.
Really?
I think he will. Because he's a young junior too, age-wise. I think he could get there. We'll see.
A lot of people also talking this morning, Jerry, about Malik Murphy, a young man that spent his first 2 years in Austin, then transferred to Duke, where he assumed the quarterback starter's role, led Duke to a 9-3 season, and now he is entering the portal yet again. He had a good year, but not a great year. Turned the ball over quite a bit, but leading Duke to a 9-3 year is not a bad year for a first-year quarterback. Where he's going to go, I do not know. He may be looking for more NIL opportunities somewhere, but where's he going to go, Jerry, that he's going to definitely be the starter, where he's going to get that NIL opportunity? Any thoughts on that, or where you think he might go? Because that's a tough situation for Malik.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where the colleges are at on Malik. Malik improved in his first year starting, obviously, but still a high turnover player. 12 interceptions this year, couple of fumbles. So he's still a high turnover player. It's going to be interesting to see, because I think the college coaching opinions are going to be mixed on him. So some people just think he'll go to USC. We'll see where things end up with him. Some people said UCLA. Do they have the NIL portion of that? It'll be interesting to see what colleges truly think of Malik, which will be going into year 2 as a starter. I think you have to have really good offensive line pieces around him is going to be the key. If you think you have a really good offensive line around him, I think that's going to be the best chance for Malik at the next stop. By the way, people are saying the UCL, and I didn't want to say it incorrectly, and I'd seen it, but I was waiting for people to say it as well to confirm what they had read. UCL injury, Blake, for Carson Beck. Tommy John surgery. He is out for a while, guys.
Yeah.
Trey Moore. It's a fair play. There's nothing wrong with it. That sort of thing. That play almost, Jerry, was indicative of how that game went for Texas. Every time there was a chance for maybe Texas to blow it open a little bit, something was there to go wrong. That was the last play of the half. If that would have happened one play prior, Texas would have got some cheap points out of it, right? And I know you're talking about the kid's injury, so I don't want to go too much on this, but 2 fumbles go right back in their guts. Or they just fall on it. When Texas, in both situations, are all around the ball.
Well, the play that crushed me was Colin Simmons hit Gunnar Stockton so hard the ball flew 30 yards. That just so doesn't happen in football. That was the one that got me. I was like, man, that ball literally went from the left hash to out of bounds.
You had 10 penalties. You had a fake punt. You had a backup quarterback come in that ran that Texas wasn't ready for. I'm telling you, that the more you think about that game, the more you realize Texas let it slip away.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that Georgia didn't display the ability to get things done and stop Texas on offense enough and all that other stuff. They're a championship caliber squad. I think this Texas team was just very close from a ball bouncing their way the right way. I really do believe that. Still hurts.
Yeah.
Our next one, guys, comes from Longhorn Jack. Thank you. And he says, calling my shot, Quentin Joyner will be a Longhorn.
Well, we were looking at running backs in the portal and whether or not Texas would want one. Joyner, a young man out of Manor who signed with USC, is one of those. Chip Trainum out of Kentucky has been injured most of the year, but he's a guy I think that originally signed with Ohio State. Is that right, Jerry?
Yes.
And then Ahmad Hardy. The one that I think might be interesting to Texas is Ahmad Hardy, who Texas saw early this year out of ULM. Remember the Louisiana Monroe running back was pretty darn good.
People bounce off of his hips and legs.
Yeah, exactly. He was a tough runner inside the tackles. I think he's an SEC caliber back. He is in the portal as well. we'll see what Texas decides to do at running back. If they even approach one at this point, you'd have to think that they might look at it because they don't know the true situation with Ted Baxter right now. You can't just go in with only Trey Wisner. We don't know whether Jaden Blue is going to go pro and or even potentially portal. So given that, I think Texas is going to look at a running back. I'm interested to see which one they look at. That's going to be interesting.
Well, and I think it'll be interesting to see which running back is willing to come into a 3-man rotation at running back, which is if Cedric Baxter comes back. And look, James Simon's a talented freshman coming. Ricky Stewart's coming as a freshman. So I think it's going to take the right mindset for a back, if Texas goes after a back, to come in and see Texas as the situation he wants to be in. Somebody's asking Velton Gardner, he's not coming back. That's the question, is how do you look at the Texas situation and say, yeah, I fit into that. I'm okay if there's 3 backs and we are all carrying the football X amount of times, and maybe I'm the third sometimes, maybe I'm the second sometimes, and it depends on how a running back comes back from injury, where I fit into this. I think that's going to take a unique guy out of the portal to clearly see a defined role at Texas with the talent they have. Not saying it can't happen.
All right, our next question, fellas, comes from waiting to see. All right, Gina says, Jerry, Michael Terry looks like A. Foster in a zone scheme.
Arian Foster?
That's what I was thinking, but I wasn't sure. I didn't want to assume.
Wow. Is he that big, Jerry? That broad? I mean, Arian Foster, broad-shouldered guy when he's coming out of Tustin. I mean, I remember him in high school.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know on that. I think Michael Terry's a really good football player. I'm not sure I can compare him to anybody, though, because he's a guy who may play some running back, may play some flex tight end or H. We'll get some reps.
Let me ask you this.
He's a little different than most guys. It's hard to pin somebody on him until he kind of does it the next level positionally.
Let me ask you this on Michael Terry, because I have one question, and this is is he violent enough as a football player, physical enough to play running back in the SEC? I mean, is he truly that type of player, or is he more of a tight end wide receiver type of physicality? And you know what I'm talking about, Jerry.
Yeah.
Running through things, initiating contact, that kind of stuff.
I think it's to be determined, because I think he's been so athletic and he's so talented, and playing in Region 4, I think he's been able to win on athleticism a lot of times. So that is what he'll have to answer early on in college. And we've talked about this before with other position players when they come into a program level of Texas. He's going to have to answer that himself. I don't think he's been pushed to do that, which makes it a really good question, Bobby. I think his mentality is there, but he just hasn't been pushed to do it yet.
The next question, guys, is going to come from,
let's see here,
Whitney. And Whitney says, do we think that Banks or Bond will play against Clemson? Of course, they'll have a little bit of time to heal, but what do y'all think?
That's a great question. I mean, Bobby, we both listened to Sark's press conference Sunday. He's really honest with injuries and transparent. I would say transparent is the best way to put it. But when he was asked about Kelvin Banks, he said, I don't know. I thought that was a very interesting answer because I think if Texas had won the game and they were 20 days out, maybe the answer is a little different. But I don't know what was an interesting answer on Kelvin Banks. And then with Isaiah Bond, we have not heard I've not heard an update on him. It's post MRI on his ankle.
Yeah, somebody's saying that according to Pete Nakos, David Stone's expected to go in the portal. I don't have that, just so you'll know.
Bobby, do you want him at Texas?
No. No, I already told you that before. Though.
I'm joking.
Yeah. I will say this too. I think that Bond is likely to play. I do not think that that's a catastrophic injury or anything that's going to take long to return from. I just wonder whether or not you should play him that much if he's not fast.
Right.
That's my bigger issue. As far as Kelvin Banks is concerned, it's a little more touch and go. And I think it's because he's 300 and something pounds. You know, ankle injuries with guys that big can be tough. Very tough. Tougher than they are with Quinn Ewers, for example.
And I think one thing with Texas right now with Sark, Kyle Flood, Trevor Gooseby is playing at a high enough level as a young player to where you feel like, okay, can we win this game against Clemson and give Kelvin the extra week? Could we win the first 2 games potentially and get Kelvin all the way back healthy? That's what they're going to have to decide and look at, I think, next week, right, Bobby, when you get into game week is because, look, Trevor Gooseby held his own against Georgia. He played really well against A&M. And the thing about Georgia is, and I said this yesterday, somebody's having a conversation, every single play snap Trevor Gooseby took Saturday was against the first-round pick, Michael Williams or Jalen Walker. I mean, you aren't going to see that again.
I have no issues with that. I have no issues with looking out for the best long-term interest of him and letting Gooseby play. I will say this. I've watched that game now 3 times, and Gooseby in space right now is not as good as Kelvin Banks, particularly on screen in the screen game. Even though Gooseby has longer arms and longer reach, Banks, I think he's just played more in real live action, in real speed. And so the screen game is important to Texas. There's no doubt about it. It's bread and butter for Steve Sarkisian. So there is a little bit of drop off, but if he has a bum ankle, the thing is, I will say this. I mean, so everybody's talking about Quinn Ewers' ankle and how he's been able to play through it and stuff. Think about that. He's only trying to play off the force of the ground, really, and make some cuts.
Right.
If you're a big guy, you're going to have 350 pounds leaning on you and trying to make cuts. That's tough stuff. And so we'll see what that means.
All right, y'all.
Parth Brooks has a good question. If we can,
get to Parth in just a second here, because I love Factor so much. I want to tell everybody about it one more time, and hopefully before my internet craps out. But notice how the days are shorter, but your to-do lists aren't. Power through your busy days with Factor's no prep, no mess meals from breakfast to dinner and anything and everything in between. Factor has easy, nutritious options to keep you fueled and feeling your best. And Factor lets you do you. Choose from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat, or just simply eat well balanced. And because Factor meals are chef prepared and dietitian approved, you're going to love not only how they taste, but also how they support your goals. And check this out. Factor is cheaper than takeout and dining out. And I told y'all a minute ago, I am a Factor customer. I have a box being delivered every week. In fact, there's one coming today to my house. I also use their wellness shots every morning as well. Factor tastes great, and it's hard to believe how easy it truly is. So head to factormeals.com/Texas50. Use promo code 50Texas to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code 50Texas at factormeals.com/50Texas to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping while your subscription is active. And I want to thank them. And then, Bobby, I'd also like you to tell everybody about Jerry about Public Rec. Excuse me.
Yes, well, I can do that for sure. Look, what do we say about the old Sackle, right? Okay, well, here we go. Let's talk about now pants. Let's be real, guys. Wearing dress pants sucks. And who decided that stiff, uncomfortable jeans squeezing your family jewels was ever a good idea? Well, consider this your holiday miracle. Public Rec's Dealmaker Pants gives you the comfort of sweatpants with the look and fit of jeans. Whether you're clocking at the office, teeing off on the golf course, They think you're going to hit the ball in the water, by the way. These pants have you covered with their formal 5-pocket style and workday fabric that's both wind and water resistant. See, no matter what the weather throws your way, the Dealmaker pant is ready for action, clean, classic, and your go-to for every day. Stay comfortable this holiday season without compromising style, because with Public Rec's Dealmaker pants, you really can have it all. And for a limited time, our listeners get 20% off with their entire order with code ONTEXAS, all caps, at Public Rec. That's $20, 20% off with code ONTEXAS at Public Rec. Let's see. There's a lot of golfers in this chat, right? Wearing stiff khakis on the golf course is an absolute nightmare. Been there, done that. They bunch, restrict, and by the 9th hole, you're just counting down the seconds till you can get out of them. But with Public Rec's Dealmaker pants, there's no discomfort, no bunching, just smooth, stretchy freedom. If that helps you get from 81 to 79 by chance, it's worth it every single time. Stop suffering in regular pants and give the gift of comfort this holiday season. For a limited time only, our listeners get 20% off when you use code ONTEXAS at checkout. That's 20% off with the code ONTEXAS, all caps, at publicrec.com. And if there's any Clemson fans on the chat today, these are great pants. They're water resistant in case you get underwater in DKR if the horns come out fast. Something to consider.
There you go. Thank you for that, Jerry. I really do appreciate it. And now then, we'll bring up that Parth Brooks super chat. Thank you, Parth. Apologies if y'all already covered this, but how do we feel about our run game going into the Clemson game? Night and day difference between A&M and Georgia. The game is unsettling. A&M's front is pretty good, so I find it odd.
I think A&M's front is pretty good. I think Georgia's is great.
Yeah.
And I don't, people are saying, well, Georgia got run all over by Haynes King. Well, that's the option offense. And it's also got a very mobile quarterback that I think, how many times he carry it? 20 plus times in that game?
24.
Yeah. I think that Texas is a bad matchup up front for Georgia, particularly with the outside zone. And then they can't move. Hayden Connor and Jake Majors just can't move the interior guys of Georgia in duo in the inside power game. They just can't. And while A&M's nose isn't great, in my opinion, that's where it ends up. I will say this: I feel fine about the Texas run game right now. I'm actually encouraged by it against just about everybody.
Yeah.
The teams that I worry about Texas being able to run against are Georgia and Notre Dame. Of this group, now I think Penn State might be tough there too. I don't know them and haven't seen them enough, but those are the only three teams that I think have the combo of defensive line and linebacker play and scheme to give Texas problems. Now, Clemson has plenty of really good players, and so I'm not going to discount them at all and what they can do to try to stop it. They will clearly try to get into a situation where they've scouted Texas extremely well, et cetera. But I expect Texas to be able to run the ball much better against just about every team they face all the way through until maybe the national championship game. Because Penn State, if I'm not mistaken, Penn State and Notre Dame and Georgia are all on the other side of the bracket. If that's the case, let's see if Texas can run against Oregon if they get there.
Yeah, I was going to say this. Clemson, first off, some stats, and I'll get into some of the personnel for Clemson a little bit, because 56 in total defense. They're giving up 60 more yards this year than last year, by the way, as a defense. They're giving up 139 and change on the ground this year. They've had some games where they've given up a lot of yards on the ground. Peter Woods is their guy. Look, Peter Woods on the interior was a 5-star prospect coming out of Alabaster, Alabama. One of the few that got away from Nick in that area, in that Birmingham area. Really good player. And he is their best guy. Peyton Page is a senior from in-state in North Carolina, which is an area that Dabo's done very well in. But Peter Woods is their guy on the interior. TJ Parker, the sophomore from Phoenix City Central on the edge, he's their top pass rusher. He has 11 sacks. Now, 6 of those sacks came in 2 games, but he has 11 sacks, pretty good size at 265. Cape Denhoff is a transfer or is a graduate junior kid or 4th-year junior kid at edge. He's out of the, I believe, out of the Tampa area. Pretty good player. Their linebackers solid, but the front 7 as a whole, it's just not. It's not the same as Georgia, who is really. So I think Texas will have success running the football on Clemson because it's just different personnel. They got good players. They got a lot of guys that were rated 4 stars. Avion Terrell, their corner's a future draft pick. They got a lot of guys that were ranked 4-star players on this defense, high 3-star, 4-star players. But I do think Texas will be able to run the football in Clemson with how Texas likes to run the football.
Okay, next question here comes from Gamer's Life. And Gamer's Life says, can we all appreciate the run that Sark is on? Enjoy it because we can't forget what just 3 years ago felt like, and we need to appreciate the success.
I totally agree. Look, I said this after the in our rapid reactions on Sunday morning is, look, I'm always going to be real with opinions on a game or what happened, but I also said in that video, the best days of Texas football under Sark are in front of us, and I really believe that. I think Texas is recruiting at the level they need to. Those that really like what that Georgia front 7 looked like, I think Texas is working to get there as a whole, right? I mean, this class, Justice Terry, Myron Charles, Josiah Sharma, Elijah Bo Barnes. I mean, I saw Jonah Williams last night. Looks tremendous physically. By the way, says he's coming along well, and he's excited that he's moving to Texas in a month. But look, I think the future of Texas football is still ascending, Bobby. And that's a really exciting place to be. I think they're recruiting at such a high level. They're a blue blood in the portal. And I think Sark has done a really good job getting this thing turned around and getting Texas in this position. Now let's go see what happens in the playoffs. But Sark's done a great job, and I think they have a really good recruiting plan. And I think the best days of Texas football are in front of us.
So I want to say that I agree with every word you just said. And this is one of the things I also agree with Gamer's Life. It's why getting caught up in things like whether or not Texas should have won this game when we all saw the game. I mean, Texas had a winnable game. Yeah. Was Quinn Ewers good enough, or is he the reason they did or didn't win? You lose the forest through the trees sometimes. And I worry that some Texas fans get so hyper-focused on the here and now, they don't see the macro perspective of where Texas is headed. And some people, that's okay. I mean, I do it sometimes too. But to Jerry's point, the macro long-term outlook of Texas is phenomenal. And not only that, but the last 2 years have been phenomenal in some ways. Yep. I mean, Texas has been in the college football playoff 2 years in a row.
Only team.
I mean, find me somebody else that wouldn't be happy with that. I mean, obviously Texas wants to win a national championship. I'm not debating that. But short of that, Texas, and certainly compared to 3 years ago, I mean, or 10 years ago, you'd take it and not look back. You know, I think that's what you have to keep in mind when you're going through a little bit of this. All right, Blake and Jerry, I want to say one thing real quick. Some people may notice that if you've just come in the last 30 minutes or so, we started this morning's live stream off with some severe technical issues. Our normal streaming company was not allowing audio into the chat. And so people were actually looking at us and not being able to hear what we were saying. So we restarted that using a different streaming service. We appreciate that service very much. We also appreciate our producer behind the scenes, Matthew Hutchison, for doing this so quickly so that we could get back to us. And also thank you guys for sticking around with us as well. Blake, I'll hand it back.
Bobby, I want to say something to what to add on your point. But when you get so close to climbing the mountaintop, man, everything is really magnified on when we talk about what you see as fans. Why? And that's always going to be that way. That means you're close. 5 years ago, nobody gave a crap. I mean, like, You knew you weren't going to win. Now you get there and you're so close, and you're a play away here, a play away there. And the coaches coach to a perfection, a level that's very hard to attain. Detail-oriented perfection in football. It's hard to attain. Golfers, pro golfers, the same thing. It's very hard to attain. Every one of their swings in a PGA Tour event, the best players, is magnified and talked about. That's just the way sports is when you get up to the top.
I want to say something real quick too. We're getting a lot of people in the chat saying that this person is transferring here, and I know exactly what's happening. I've never seen this happen this badly before. We've seen people spoof tweets and things like that. Like, I think AI now is generating images for people, and there are more and more people putting false news out there than ever before. And that is that's something that's unfortunate. If you guys need to, please make sure you do me a favor and quote the person that you're saying this about and check their Twitter handle or wherever you're getting it from, because I've never seen the amount of false news as it relates to injury news, but really the portal right now, Jerry. I mean, there's been 7 or 8 guys that we've seen. Oh, he's in the portal. Well, no, somebody's really just trying to pull a joke, and it makes it tough for fans. And so I know you guys are going to have to work through that, but hopefully we can be here and let you guys separate fact from fiction. But we'll see from there. Somebody living rent free says Texas needs to bring in Barry and Brown. Chris Jackson will get his hands right. I don't think Texas is interested, I'm being told, in Barry and Brown. They would have been a year ago, not this year. So just for that one.
All right, let's get to some more super chats. This one here from Terrence. Thank you, Terrence. Do you think Texas will have to renegotiate their NIL deals like South Carolina just did with the Edge Stewart? Someone like Colin Simmons, maybe?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
On an ongoing basis, guys. It's happening. So get ready for it. I mean, that's one of the things that Texas is preparing for. You know, that's why you don't go all in on certain players, and you want to make sure you manage the ones that you have. Texas has a great roster, a great backbone or spine of a roster right now. They've got difference makers on both sides of the ball that are young, whether that's Arch Manning, whether that's Ryan Wingo, Anthony Hill, Colin Simmons. Those are difference makers. Okay. Go find me 5 players at their positions that you'd rather have in the country. That's a difference maker. In their age group, by the way. Texas NIL absolutely understands that that's part of the process. And it's not just Texas, everywhere around the country realizes that.
Hey, by the way, somebody in the chat, I saw it before the Clemson game. I haven't seen it since. If somebody can find it, how many pressures did Dylan Stewart have this year? For those that haven't seen it, that was an amazing number for a freshman defensive end, the pressures. Now, he plays a lot of snaps. I think it was upwards of 47, 48. But if somebody could bring that up, that'd be awesome. Because that was a huge number of pressures for a true freshman.
That's crazy. Next question here comes from Jerry's Jack Links. We appreciate you as always. He says, I love the familiarity between all these teams. Makuba and Clemson, Johnny Nanson's played Arizona State, etc.
Yes. I mean, I love Makuba and Clemson. I love Michael Taff and his familiarity with Cade Klubnik, actually. I mean, you know, that's not a bad thing as well. Of course, Clemson has a DB that has some familiarity with Quinn Ewers and R.J. Mickens.
Yep.
He played at South Lake, you know. So I do like that. I will say this. It works both ways a little bit, maybe. Klubnik may feel more comfortable because he's played in DKR before too. Right. So there's a little back and forth, but I think Texas there's a reason Texas should feel confident against Clemson. I'm not saying they should be overconfident, but Texas is favored by 11.5 for a reason and opened at 10.5.
All right, next one here comes from, let's see, Bradford. Thank you, Bradford. Bond and Golden are also one tier below Worthy and Adonai Mitchell.
Yes. Golden, not so much, by the way.
Yeah,
Bond is proven to be below Worthy. Maybe that's his ankle. Maybe that's his like Bond is not the best route runner. Xavier Worthy could really put people in a mixer in a route. I'm not sure Bond does that. He presses you downfield, and he may be a better deep ball catcher than Xavier Worthy. But I agree with this comment by Bradford overall. Like Golden, though, I mean, he may be a better route runner than Adonai Mitchell, more consistent, but not as athletic. That's the thing about Adonai Mitchell. And Adonai Mitchell's ability to contort his body is still one of the best I've ever seen at Texas.
That's why fans should be excited about Jamie French and Khalil Lockett. They have that same body control.
The only person I would say that's in that category is Jermichael Finley.
Yeah.
Long arm, contort the body. And that he was a tight end, by the way. But same kind of category, right? His son, by the way, being recruited by Texas. Jermichael's son.
Caden Finley, Texas likes a lot in 26 at wideout.
And he's out of Alito.
Next question here comes from David Parcell. David, we appreciate you. Did y'all see Sark's face during the SEC championship game? He looked like he was hunting his prey, really focused.
Yeah, and on Sunday, he didn't look like he slept at all. I mean, that's the life of a coach, Bobby.
He looked like he was still pissed on Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he looked like he had just lost his championship game, Jerry.
Coaches are as competitive as they are. If somebody just goes out and beats you, you tip your hat. And that means you're not competitive, and it gets under your skin. But a big game that you feel like you should have won, that got away, those are the ones that really hurt. And they sting. They stick with you, and that was a tough loss for the Texas staff.
Yes, it was. And it should be, because they thought they had it. They thought they had a game plan to win it. Maybe they did until Carson Beck went out, Jerry. Maybe they did. Hey, I want to say this. We have not mentioned this morning DeMarvion Overshown's injury last night. It looks like he may be done for 2025. Hate to hear that for him. We mentioned yesterday that Jonathan Brooks re-injured the same knee on Sunday in a non-contact injury. A couple tough days in a row for the Longhorns in the NFL that have been really good representatives of Texas throughout the years. We wish them nothing but the best of luck. But Overshown going down last night, Jonathan Brooks on Sunday. That's why, I mean, football's a tough game, Jerry. Carson Beck. Think about Carson Beck. He's looking at a first-round pick, maybe second or third, given the year he had this year. Tears his UCL, maybe.
That's going to be a year deal for him to get back. I mean, 9 months to start throwing probably, but that's not when you start playing.
Yep.
You got to get a lot of strength back, and that's a rough injury. I mean, Jonathan Brooks, I mean, that was a heartbreaking one for me, because worked so hard to get back, and then same knee. Those are tough.
Our next super chat here comes from Brandon Huey. He says, Jerry, Bobby, are all fans like this about their starting quarterback, or is it just having a Manning behind you? Do you think that Arch will get the same treatment when he struggles? Does everyone love the backup?
Oh, yeah. Look, NFL, major college football, heck, the right high school, if your quarterback struggles, Yes, it's all the same to me. I don't think it has anything to do with. I mean, some people probably say it does. I don't think any of this talk has anything to do with who the backup is. To me, the talk is one way or the other on it is you're right there. You know you can beat anybody to go win a national championship. That's what drives it. If you're 5-7, it's a different conversation. It's like we were talking about earlier is especially somebody who has really high expectations, right? Is you're so close. You're so close to beating Washington. You're so close to beating Georgia. You're so close to being. You can see a national championship. You're starting your climb up the mountain. You can see it. That's what I think exasperates all of it, Bobby.
Yeah,
the bigger the game, the bigger the situation.
Brandon, I would say this to Brandon. It happens at Texas maybe more than it does other places, in my opinion, because the fishbowl is bigger. That's just the nature of the beast at Texas. I can really only recall in my lifetime where people weren't even talking about a backup quarterback for 2 times. And that was Vince Young and Colt McCoy. Yep. And even Colt McCoy's first year, they were clamoring a little bit for Jevon Sneed because he had a liver arm. Vince Young had a run there where he was not throwing the ball well, and people brought in Chance Mock, you know. But they proved themselves over time, and they were never, for the vast majority of the career, they were the starters unquestionably, et cetera. But I can really only think of those 2 times. And I would add this. I do think that the fact that it's Arch Manning adds some level of intrigue or possibility. And I've been around a long time. I've seen when they brought in, I don't know, Donovan Forbes over Mark Murdoch back in 1988 or some. I've seen the fans go nuts for a backup quarterback. I've never seen fans go this nuts over a backup quarterback except for Vince Young when he came in. He was greeted with that kind of round of applause. So I do think Manning, even his name or his recruiting ranking, whatever you want to chalk it up to or a combination thereof, add some level of,
I want to add this. I wanted to add this on Arch the next 2 or 3 years. Archie hopes it's 3. If anybody, the golfers out there, remember we're in the Golf Channel, where literally break down every swing Tiger Woods made for years. We haven't seen anything from a national level with what's about to happen when Arch Manning's a starter. By the way, you think guys have been scrutinized, good or bad, in the past? I mean, just those the guys that are golf fans that watch how every swing of these guys is broken down nowadays. That's what the Arch is going to be like from a national perspective. It's going to be wild to watch, in my opinion.
The Manning cast next year after the Ohio State game might have a little something to do with that too, right? I mean, to your point, Jerry, highly anticipated, in my opinion.
Okay, next one here, guys, comes from Ben. Ben, thank you for the super chat, and I'm probably going to butcher this, but he said, "Can Texas have a hard time with Scatabo round 2?"
Look, we're looking ahead. People say we can't be looking ahead, but we're answering a question. I think Scatabo is going to have a tough time with Texas. And he's a tough kid, and I love him. He's one of my favorite college players in a while, honestly. Just his story, the way he plays the game. But Arizona State's offensive line is going to be challenged to block it against Texas if this game happens. And I think that's going to be the challenge for Arizona State, is blocking Texas up front if that game happens. So I think that this challenge is how Scadabo's had success this year, and he's had a lot of it. Is that going to be the same look against Texas? That's what remains to be seen if that game happens. And we'll talk about it more if it gets there. But Jordan Tyson being out, their best receiver by large margin, that's tough to overcome. But I do like their quarterback, Sam Leavitt, as a college player that may be a draftable guy down the line. He can make some plays off schedule. He's not an uber athlete, but man, does he move around the field pretty well.
You do not want your safety attempting to tackle Scatterbo one-on-one. That is not the matchup you want from Michael Taft or Andrew Makuba. I think that if that happens, and if Arizona State's able to find a way to make that happen, I think that's a problem for Texas. But I think the Texas defensive front is a little bit more athletic than that, and I don't think they're going to get a lot of one-on-ones in that regard.
Yeah,
that would be so. It might have a hard time. Everybody's going to have a hard time with him to some degree, but I think Texas has a team defense that can handle that. In and of itself, doesn't mean they won't have problems elsewhere. It won't complicate matters, but I feel pretty good about Texas being able to manage that at least.
All right, our next one is a super chat, and bear with me because I'm reading this off a screenshot. This is actually from our first stream. It's from South End Zone Queen, and thank you for your super chat. Considering Jay Brooks just re-injured his ACL/knee, should we get a proven running back in the portal to help Trey's load? I don't want CJ to suffer the same fate.
It's a great question. And we were talking about it earlier, Bobby. The interesting thing to me will be what running back in the portal would take on that role and would be okay with going into a situation. And a lot depends on what happens with Jaden Blue as well. But that's still a loaded running back room. And there's some uncertainties there. So I think it's going to take the right kind of guy that kind of works through the weeds and says, okay, I'm good with that scenario. I'm good at this role. I think I could help this really, really good team and give them something maybe somebody else can't. And then also saying, okay, is Cedric Baxter going to be healthy enough to go early in the season? What's that looking like? I mean, Texas has 2 running backs coming in this from high school. James Simon's a really good player. Ricky Stewart's got a bright future. So it's not like there's not numbers there. There's numbers there. I think it's going to take the right guy for Texas that can see kind of a role and be okay with that role. Because I think a lot of your best backs going in the portal, that's not really what they're looking for.
All right, guys, I think that may be the last super chat. I'm sorry for us starting late today. We got behind because of technical services. You can see that we're even using new software here as we stream to you. We probably will not be using this software in the future and go back to our other one, but we wanted to be able to air this week because there was a server failure for audio using our other software. Guys, thank you all so much for joining us here. Thank you also to our sponsors, Tecovas, Factor, Manscaped, Jerry, and the tangled tinsel in your ornament there, as well as Public Rec. Blake, we got other stuff coming up today. We've got lunch with the coach coming here in the next hour or so. I'm going to sit down with Brian Irwin and Bob Shipley and ask them not only about the game that we just saw this past weekend, but what they think of Clemson coming up and the playoff run in general, and maybe what they saw from that game that could have led to a Texas victory. We'll talk about that. We've got other news and notes coming as well. Jerry, you've got the recruiting breakdown. That'll have some focus on portal, right, today? Yeah,
we have that. And then somebody asked about the basketball guy, the number 1 player that went to BYU. I'm pretty sure $5 million NIL deal on that. That'll make anybody jump. And it's the former Phoenix Suns assistant, who's a really good offensive coach, like Mark Pope they lost. That was a kind of a shaking type of recruitment there. It hasn't happened in college basketball in a long time like that. And that's what I have because somebody asked twice about that.
Jerry and Blake is going in and out here. Blake,
yes,
see us out, buddy, before you get really clipped off.
That's right. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Also, please head over to ontexasfootball.com. Become a member today. You can use promo code OTFOG. You'll get a full year for $39.95. Again, ontexasfootball.com. And then don't forget the shop now open, shop.ontexasfootball.com. Get hats like the guys are wearing today. Get mugs and just stocking stuffers. Go check that out, shop.ontexasfootball.com. We'll be back tomorrow, normal time, normal place. So for Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you then.
Hook 'em, guys. Have a good one.